Hey, second period. It's Miss Butler. Let's do some science. This week, we're studying plants. Before we left school, we've already studied bacteria, protists, and fungus. So all we have left to study are plants and animals. So this week, you're doing an introduction to plants. So remember, plants are producers. That means they make their own food through photosynthesis. And what do plants need for photosynthesis? They need sunlight, they need carbon dioxide, and they need water. Plants are multicellular, and they have eukaryotic cells. Remember, eukaryotic cells means all plant cells have a nucleus inside. Scientists think plants evolved from the same ancestor as green algae. So remember, we studied green algae when we learned about protists. Green algae is a protist. It can act like a plant because it's green, it has chlorophyll, it can do photosynthesis, but it's not a plant because it doesn't have roots and stems and leaves. Remember that green algae that was in my fish tank? Scientists think the first plants on the earth lived near the water. So the earliest plants that scientists have discovered were probably really small, really short, and they lived maybe near a riverbed or a creek bed. For plants to live on land, away from the water, over time they had to adapt. So let's talk about some adaptations plants have that helps them live on land away from water. So the first adaptation is called a cuticle. Plants have this stuff called a cuticle, which is a waxy layer on their leaves and stems. And what this does is it protects them from drying out. So if they don't have access to water right away, this waxy layer protects the moisture on the inside. Here's what the cuticle looks like. It's almost like if you wax your car, the water just beads up and it keeps the water from inside evaporating. Another adaptation that plants have to help them grow tall is called cellulose. Cellulose is found in cell walls and it's used for supporting the plant. Here's a picture of cellulose fibers that have been magnified, and these fibers came from celery. Celery can be a pretty tall plant, and that's because cellulose in the cell walls, they are kind of like fibers that are woven together to give the celery plant structure and support. This week you're going to study types of plants. Some types of plants have seeds for reproduction. That's like your apple trees, corn, peanuts, and peas. So all of these plants in the picture are seed plants. The only way to make more is to make a seed, which would then grow into a new plant. Some plants can reproduce without seeds, and they're called seedless plants. This would be your ferns, mosses, and horsetails. If you've never seen horsetails, they look exactly like their name. They look like the tail of a horse. These plants don't use seeds, but instead they make spores. Remember, we just studied fungus, and those also reproduce with spores. So here's a picture of moss, and there's a fern growing with moss all around it. These are seedless plants. And then here is a picture of a horsetail. It's a seedless plant, and it looks just like the tail of a horse. Have fun studying plants this week. I miss you guys.